how space begins, with words only, signs traced on the blank page. To describe space, to name it, to trace it, like those Portolano makers who saturated the coastlines with the names of harbors, the names of capes, the names of inlets, until in the end, the land was only separated from the sea by a continuous ribbon of text. Is the Aleph the place in Bourges from which the entire world is visible simultaneously? Anything other than an alphabet? Space as inventory, space as invention. Space begins with that model map in the old editions of the Petit Larousse Illustré, which used to represent something like 65 geographical terms in 60 square centimeters, miraculously brought together, deliberately abstract. Here is the desert with its oasis, its wadi and its salt lake. Here are the spring and the stream, the mountain torrent, the canal, the confluence, the river, the estuary, the river mouth, and the delta. Here is the sea with its islands, its archipelago, its islets, its reefs, its shoals, its rocks, its offshore bar, and here are the strait, the isthmus, and the peninsula, the bight and the narrows, and the gulf and the bay, and the cape and the inlet, and the head and the promontory. Here are the lagoon and the cliff, here are the dunes, here are the beach and the saltwater lakes, and the marshes. Here is the lake, and here are the mountains, the peak, the glacier, the volcano, the spur, the slope, the col, the gorge. Here are the plain and the plateau, and the hillside and the hill. Here is the town and its anchorage, and its harbor, and its lighthouse. There are cows in the pasture, wine growers in the vineyards, lumberjacks in the forests, climbers roped together in the mountains. A postman on his bicycle pedals laboriously up the hairpin bends of a lane. There are washerwomen beside the river, road menders beside the roads, and farmers' wives feeding the hens. Rows of children are coming out in twos into the schoolyard. A fin de siècle villa stands all on its own, surrounded by tall glass buildings. There are little gingham curtains in the windows, drinkers on the terraces of the cafes, a cat warming itself in the sun, a lady weighed down by parcels hailing a taxi, a sentry mounting guard in front of a public building. There are garbage collectors filling refuse trucks, decorators putting up scaffolding. There are nannies in the squares, secondhand booksellers along the quays. There's a queue in front of the bakery. One gentleman walking his dog, another reading his newspaper sitting on a bench, another watching workmen demolishing a block of houses. There's a policeman controlling the traffic. There are birds in the trees, sailors on the river, fishermen on the embankment. There's a woman raising the iron shutter of her haberdashery. There are chestnut vendors, sewermen, newspaper sellers. There are people doing their shopping. It will no doubt be remembered that during that summer, following the Geneva Agreements and the negotiations with Tunisia and Morocco, the entire planet experienced peace for the first time in several decades. A situation that lasted for only a few days, and which I don't think has recurred since.
She's waving her left arm in the air, and her left fingers are reaching toward the sky as her toe makes circles. Her hips circle also a bit. She shifts to the left and faces upstage and hops twice, back and forth, reaching up, making a circle, and walking to the audience, and towards upstage, turning, pause. She drops to the floor, moves her legs and arms, in and out, twists her fingers. She stands. She hops. She shifts back and forth and looks toward the ceiling. She looks toward the floor and towards the audience. She spins.
Her left hand is wiggling fingers. She's circling her right arm, stepping back on the right leg, shifting her weight, turning a half turn. Her arms are windmilling. She's up in releve. She is almost falling. She's running backward. Her left foot is up, moving toward the right, toward the left, flat. Her arms go out to the side, then clap, then go back behind her, crossing over each other. Her right hand is on her head, going down her body, touching now at the ankles. One hand is going up, both hands are going up, touching her head. A little step around, hands touch the hips very lightly. Step together, both hands went to the floor. One leg up in the air, a little run forward, a little run back, a little slower on the run back than on the run forward. The arms are switching one of the body to the other. It was a big noisy fall. A little twist, a little tilt. The hands are leading. Now the hips are leading. That was a very brief pause. A little step back onto the right. Now the right foot flexed, then it taps. Both hands are flat from the elbows out, now one to the ear. The hands touched for just a moment. The arms swung back. Now they're circling from the elbows. That was a lovely turn that began with the head. I'm now standing still just for a moment, a little foray with the head slightly to the right. The arms are going out just a little, and now very quickly, very tiny movements, little gestures of the hands and arms. The right arm seems to be predominant. The facing is primarily to stage left, but sometimes to stage right. The arms are going from center to out. Now they're forward. She's facing downstage, hands around the head, framing the head. Left arm down, right arm pulling the head down. Continuing, very flowing. That was a little bit of a repeat. So the same material done with different dynamics. A little step back and forth to the left, now forward and back, downstage, upstage. Primarily action of the legs, but now we're taking the torso with it. A swing of the right leg into front attitude twice with a flexed foot, a little more going backward.
my cow? Yes, ma'am. Could you tell me how? Yes, ma'am. What did you feed her? Corn and hay. What did you feed her? Corn and hay. Did you milk my cow? Yes, ma'am. Did you milk my cow? Yes, ma'am. How did you milk her? Squish, squish, squish. How did you milk her? Squish, squish, squish. Did the cow get sick? Yes, ma'am. Did the cow get sick? Yes, ma'am. How did she die? How did she die? Did the buzzards come? Yes, ma'am. Did the buzzards come? Yes, ma'am. How did they fly? Flop, flop, flop. How did they fly? Flop, flop, flop.
Four, a space without a use. I have several times tried to think of an apartment in which there would be a useless room, absolutely and intentionally useless. It wouldn't be a junk room. It wouldn't be an extra bedroom or a corridor or a cubbyhole or a corner. It would be a functionless space. It would serve for nothing, relate to nothing. For all my efforts, I found it impossible to follow this idea through to the end. Language itself seemingly proved unsuited to describing this nothing, this void, as if we could only speak of what is full, useful, and functional. A space without a function, not without any precise function, but precisely without any function. Not plurifunctional, everyone knows how to do that, but afunctional. It wouldn't obviously be a space intended solely to release the others, lumber room, cupboard, hanging space, storage space, etc., but a space, I repeat, that would serve no purpose at all. I sometimes manage to think of nothing, not even like Raymond Queneau's Ami Perrault in a novel called Perrault, Mon Ami, of the death of Louis XVI. All of a sudden, I realize I am here. At the metro train has just stopped, and that, having left Dugommier some 90 seconds before, I am now well and truly at Domesnil. But in the event I haven't succeeded in thinking of nothing, how does one think of nothing? How to think of nothing without automatically putting something round that nothing, so turning it into a whole, into which one will hasten to put something, an activity, a function, a destiny, a gaze, a need, a lack, a surplus. Three, practical exercises. Observe the street from time to time with some concern for system, perhaps. Apply yourself, take your time, note down the place, the terrace of a cafe near the junction of the Rue de Pâques and the Boulevard Saint-Germain. The time, 7 o'clock in the evening. The date, 15th of May, 1973. The weather, set fair. Note down what you can see. Anything worthy of note going on? Do you know how to see what's worthy of note? Is there anything that strikes you? Nothing strikes you. You don't know how to see. You must set about it more slowly, almost stupidly. Force yourself to write down what is of no interest. What is most obvious, most common, most colorless. Decipher a bit of the town, deduce the obvious facts. The obsession with ownership, for example. Describe the number of operations the driver of a vehicle is subjected to when he parks merely in order to go and buy 100 grams of fruit jelly. Parks by means of a certain amount of toing and froing, switches off the engine, withdraws the key, setting off a first anti-theft device, extricates himself from the vehicle, winds up the left-hand front window, locks it, checks that the left-hand rear door is locked. If not, opens it, raises the handle inside, slams the door, checks it's locked securely. We use our eyes for seeing. Our field of vision reveals a limited space, something vaguely circular, which ends very quickly to the left and right. and doesn't extend very far up or down. If we squint, we can manage to see the end of our nose. If we raise our eyes, we can see there's an up. If we lower them, we can see there's a down. If we turn our head in one direction, then in the other, we don't even manage to see completely everything there is around us. We have to twist our bodies round to see properly what was behind us. Our gaze travels through space and gives us the illusion of relief and distance. That is how we construct space, with an up and a down, a left and a right, an in front and a behind, a near and a far.
Frames her face. She looks right, left, bends, bounces a little, touches her legs, touches her feet. Her elbows bend. She twists, she turns, she pirouettes, she jumps, she pauses, and she drops to the floor. And then she comes up. She turns around, runs upstage towards the wall, and back slowly. Frames her face again. Bounces. Folds. Makes a big arc. Frames her face. Gently brushes her hair. Jumps. Hops. Moves around. Twist, 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 twist. Very fast, then very slow. She waves, looking over something. She keeps turning, and then she jumps and drops to the floor. Shakes everything off. Comes up. Runs upstage. Touches one leg, then the other. Then the other, then the other, then the other. Up on tiptoe. Dropping. Turning. She runs around. Shifts her weight from left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left, left to right. And she bounces. And she jumps. She bounces. Her right elbow moves. Her chin moves a little bit to the left. She looks east, west. Winds up for a big throw. And she jumps. And she jumps. Hops. Runs upstage. Stays there for a moment. Shifts her weight. Drops on the floor. Brushes her hair. Frames her face. Touches her right thigh. Nothing. Her right ankle moves. Her nose moves a little. She looks around and around, rolls a little bit, pauses.
When nothing arrests our gaze, it carries a very long way. But if it meets with nothing, it sees nothing. It sees only what it meets. Space is what arrests our gaze, what our sight stumbles over. The obstacle, bricks, an angle, a vanishing point. Space is when it makes an angle, when it stops, when we have to turn for it to start off again. There's nothing ectoplasmic about space. It has edges. It doesn't go off in all directions. It does all that needs to be done for railway lines to meet well short of infinity. Why not set a higher value on dispersal? Instead of living in just one place and trying in vain to gather yourself together there, why not have 5 or 6 rooms dotted about Paris? I'd go and sleep in Denver. I'd write in the Place Voltaire. I'd listen to music in the Place Clichy. I'd make love at the Potin des Peupliers. I'd eat in the Rue de la Combe Issoire. I'd read by the Parc Monceau, etc. Is that any more foolish, when all's said and done, than putting all the furniture shops in the Faubourg Saint-Antoine, all the glassware shops in the Rue de Paradis, all the tailors in the Rue de Saint-Thiers, all the Jews in the Rue des Rosiers, all the students in the Latin Quarter, all the publishers in Saint-Sulpice, all the doctors in Harley Street, all the blacks in Harlem, the country, 1, frontiers. Countries are divided from one another by frontiers. Crossing a frontier is quite an emotive thing to do. An imaginary limit made material by a wooden barrier which, as it happens, is never really on the line it purports to represent, but a few dozen or hundreds of meters this side or that of it is enough to change everything, even the landscape. It's the same air, the same earth, but the road is no longer quite the same. The writing on the road signs changes. The baker's shops no longer look altogether like the thing we were calling a baker's shop just a short while earlier. The loaves are no longer the same shape. There are no longer the same cigarette packets lying around on the ground. Note what remains identical: the shape of the houses, the shape of the fields, the faces, the shell emblems at the filling stations, the Coca-Cola signs that are almost identical, as a recent photographic exhibition showed, from Tierra del Fuego to Scandinavia and from Japan to Greenland. The rules of the road, with a few variations, the gauge on the railways, with the exception of Spain, etc. Two, Saint-Jérôme in his study, by Antonello da Messina, National Gallery, London. The study is a piece of wooden furniture standing on the tiled floor of a cathedral. It rests on a dais which is reached by 3 steps and consists mainly of 6 compartments filled with books and various other objects, boxes chiefly and a vase, and a working surface, the flat part of which supports 2 books, an inkwell and a quill. And the sloping part of the book that the saint is in the midst of reading. All its elements are fixed, i.e., constitute the piece of furniture as such. But on the dais also are a chair, the one on which the saint is sitting, and a chest. The saint has taken his shoes off in order to mount the dais. He has put his cardinal's hat down on the chest. He is dressed in a cardinal red robe and wears a sort of skull cap, also red, on his head. He sits very upright in his chair and a long way from the book he is reading. His fingers have slipped inside the pages as if he were either only leafing through the book, or rather as if he had a frequent need to refer back to pages he has read earlier. On top of one of the shelves, facing the saint and high above him, there stands a tiny crucifix. On one side of the shelves are fixed two austere hooks, one which bears an item of clothing that may be a miss or a stole, an amice or a stole, but is more likely a towel. Her left arm raises and her left hand circles. She hops back and forth, back and forth. Reaching up and down, she looks at the audience. She drops to the floor. She looks towards the ceiling and does a little roll. Her left hand is wiggling, fingers opening and closing. She is running backward, moving behind her. Right hand is on her head. A little step around. Both hands reach toward the floor and are on the floor. She is shifting and switching, a little twist and a little tilt. Both hands are flat. The hands touch from the elbows. Arms are going out just a little. The right arm is predominant. The gaze, sometimes it is stage left and now it is stage right. The same material done with different dynamics. She frames her face, looks right, left, bounces a little, touches her feet. She twists, she turns, she pirouettes. She pauses, then she comes up and frames herself again, jumps, hops, moves around, twists, very fast, then very slow. She tilts, looking over her shoulder. She jumps, she drops to the floor, shakes everything, up and up, toes, starting to the right and then to the left, right to left. She looks east and west and then winds up for a big throw, runs up stage, softens everything. Her left arm raises and her left hand circles. She keeps circling it. She hops and looks back and forth, reaching up and down. She looks at the audience. She drops to the floor. She looks towards the ceiling. Her left hand is wiggling, fingers opening and closing. She is running backward, moving behind her, and her right hand is on her head. A little step around, both hands reach toward the floor and are on the floor. She is switching a little with a twist and a little tilt. Both hands are flat. The hands touch from the elbows. Arms are going out just a little. The right arm is predominant. Gaze sometimes is stage left and now it is stage right. The same material done with different dynamics. She frames her face. She looks right and she looks left. She bounces a little, touches her feet. She twists, she turns, she pirouettes. She pauses, then she comes up, frames herself again, jumps, hops, moves around, twists, very fast, very slow. She tilts, looking over her shoulder. She jumps, drops to the floor, shakes everything off, up and up, toe starting right, to the left, right to the left. She looks east, west, winds up for a big throw, runs upstage, softens her weight.